Hi everyone, this is Matt from Snakehouse Exotics. I'm doing a request video today for Grod Dragon 14. They've asked if I could do a video on how I keep and how I set up spotted pythons, Antaresia maculosa. Now I've kept spotted pythons in vivariums, in rack systems and so on, different substrates, and to be honest, the best system that I've found for spotted pythons for this species is a tub. There's a little bit of controversy between tubs, racks and vivariums. Personally, as a breeder, I find that rack systems, it's easier to work with, for one. I find that snakes feed a lot more readily if they're kept in a rack system and in a tub or a drawer. They seem to feel a lot more secure, which obviously enables them to eat without any fear of anything. In a big open vivarium, then they need hides and everything else, and yep, they'll come out at night and they'll move about in a vivarium, and they do the same in tubs. To be honest, snakes fare very, very well in tubs. I've also found this true with leopard geckos as well. The difference of keeping leopard geckos in tubs and in a rack system compared to keeping them in vivariums is amazing. But anyway, back to the spotted pythons. Now all I do very, very simply is I use a newspaper substrate, a very small water bowl. There's some water in. If I peel the paper back, you can see that one end here is sitting on a heat mat, and that heat mat, I heat that up to 88 degrees inside the tub. It's very important that you check the temperature inside the tub as opposed to the temperature on the mat outside of the tub, because obviously if that's reading 92, say here, there's a good possibility that this is going to be 2 or 3, 4 degrees less inside the tub. So always take your measurements from inside the enclosure, inside the habitat that you're proposing to keep any species in. That way you know you've got the correct temperature gradient within the enclosure. So here, 88 degrees this end. At the moment I'm in my breeding room and hatchling room, simply because that's where the spotted pythons are now. The female's gravid, she's ovulated, and the male's ready to be separated from her, so we're going to set him up in here. Now this is an 18 litre RUB, really useful box, which doesn't seem very big, but they prefer confined spaces. They like small spaces. There's more than enough room in here for him, and he fares very well in this kind of an enclosure. So we'll get the snake and we'll put him in. He probably won't stay in there for very long if I keep the top off, but we'll get him and have a look at him, and we'll put him in. He hasn't fed now for about 2.5 months now, because he's been breeding. So we'll get him out, we'll get him set up in here, and we'll get him back onto the heat so that there's no gradient, there's no drop in temperature at night rather, from the breeding cycle that he was on. So that'll whip him back into shape and get him eating and feeding, and promote a feeding response from him fairly soon. I would have to guess at, say, that in the next 2 weeks I'll get him feeding, and he'll start back on medium mice, work his way back up for a couple of meals, say, work his way back up to the large mice, and eventually 2 large mice a week as he was before. But it's important that you don't go straight onto large food out of a breeding cycle. This can be quite detrimental to the snake's health. So you start off with smaller items, and then move on to the bigger stuff, the usual stuff that we'd normally be taking. Right, we'll get the snake and have a look. Okay, so here he is. He was paired up with a female on the 1st of October, as he was last year. He's bred her, done his job. This particular male is also het for granite. He's lost the end of his tail, unfortunately. He was like that when I purchased him. But as you can see, the size of him compared to the size of the enclosure, you know, the enclosure is not that big, but the box in effect serves as a hide. And if he wants to go underneath the paper and go under there to hide, then of course he has that option. So I'm not going to put a hide in there for him. But of course he has a cool end and a warm end. The room, in this particular room, is always a constant 82 degrees, and that serves as a good ambient temperature for the pythons, for the royals and the spotteds, the Morelia and so on that we keep in here. And it also serves as an incubator for the some of the colubrids as well that we breed. So some of the corn snakes and so on, I don't need to incubate the eggs in an incubator. I just simply put them in the room in egg boxes with some vermiculite, obviously mixed with water, and they hatch out. But there, I mean, that's a very, very simple setup, and he'll do very well in there. Again, he'll stay in there this year, feeding once a week, two large mice a week, right the way through till the 1st of October, and he'll be paired up with a female again, and then start breeding. As he ventures into the breeding season, his appetite decreases, and he has his mind on other things then. So okay, I hope that helps anybody looking at setting up spotted pythons. Of course, you can keep spotted pythons by all means in vivariums. Very important to make sure you have the same kind of a setup, whereas you have a heat source at one end and you have a cooler end. Often the heat source, if you're just keeping it in a lounge or wherever bedroom, quite often the heat source will provide an ambient temperature of somewhere near in the cooler end for you in the enclosure. But again, it's important to put hide boxes and stuff like that if you're planning to keep the snake in a vivarium. Okay, so that's a spotted python. This is the male, and I say the female's just ovulated not too long ago, so she's just actually starting to blow up, so she's starting to haze up and go into a pre-lay shed, so she won't be too long. We've had the jungle carpet python has ovulated and pre-lay shed. She won't be too long before she's laying a clutch. She's due on the 9th of February to lay her clutch. We've also got royals that have ovulated and pre-lay shed, so we'll be getting some clutches hopefully soon, some royal clutches. And what else have we got? We've got the corn snakes. They just started yesterday breeding, so we'll get some double clutches on the corn snakes, and we'll do some update videos on some of the other snakes, and hopefully some nice clutches this year. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care. Bye bye.